Show me any land where the European says, I was here first, and I will show you black people who were there before him. He is not a native anywhere. And when they ask us to go home, we should give them conditions. Because to be honest with you, I'm not interested in being here when the Chinese man comes to rule the world. I'm not interested in being here. Because he might be worse than the crack, and you can't get worse than the crack. Wow. And y'all know what I'm talking about, because when you go to the Chinese store and you're short 2 cents, even though you've been shopping there since you was 2 years old, they will make you walk back home in 10 feet of snow and get 2 pennies to come back and get a cup of hot tea. Am I wrong? So if they'll make an old black man or woman who's been shopping at their store for 30, 40, 50 years walk home in 10 feet of snow for 2 pennies, imagine what they'll make you do if they was in charge of your society. But when the European says go back home, give them some conditions. Number 1, you must pay for the forced free labor of my ancestors. From the first day they got here and to the last day of chattel slavery, with cost of living increases for every year since 1865. Are y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Furthermore, when I leave, everything that I invented that you use to make your society exist automatically becomes the personal property of my people. And in order for you to continue using it, you must apply for a license to use my cell phone, a license to use my helicopter, a license to use my internet that we also invented. And guess what else? Never again will you ever take anything out of the ground of any black nation on earth unless you pay fair market value. If you meet those 3, we'll see you tomorrow. But he'll never meet those 3. Because to meet those 3 automatically makes African people the next world superpower overnight. You're the sleeping giant waiting to manifest your power. And our ancestors, millions of them, buried at the bottom of oceans and dug deep into graves, are wondering why we are taking so long to go back to our rightful place of world history. See, I disagree with our scholars just a little bit when they say teaching our children their history will take us back to where we used to be. It's necessary. They must be taught who they are. It is essential. They must be taught who they are. But you and I know a lot of black people who know everything there is to know about black history. Who have absolutely no loyalty to black people. Are you with me? Yes, sir. So we got living evidence that simply knowing about black does not make you an asset to black people. In fact, I would argue that many of those who know the most seem to be used the most against the best interests of their own people. So we have to study everything we've been taught, study everything we see. You must be able to wake up your critical analysis skills, brothers and sisters. Dr. Leonard Jeffrey says we suffer from the paralysis of analysis. We got a bad habit of swallowing people's beliefs and values without critiquing them before we digest them. And one thing you have to understand about the human brain, especially when it comes to our children, is once you plant a seed in the mind, whether it's white superiority, whether it's black inferiority, whether it's lesbianism, whether it's homosexuality, whether it's light-skin supremacy, whatever it is difficult to uproot a seed planted in the mind. Which is why if I was in charge of black America, if I was in charge of the global African situation, there would be no television in existence.
That's right.
Because the television destroys black people and black children more than any public school ever could. It is the television. Unsupervised, free access to the brainwashed too.
That's right, brother.
It's killing us, and it's killing you. What did Adolf Hitler say about mind control? By the way, and I'm no supporter of Hitler. I'm no supporter of the extermination of any people whatsoever. And we have to make sure that although we're going to fight and destroy white supremacy, we will not lose our humanity in the process. But I'm invoking his name because I want you to read Mein Kampf. If you are black and you have not read Mein Kampf, then you know nothing about propaganda control. If you are black and you have not read Mein Kampf, you know nothing about military science. If you black and you have not read Mein Kampf, you do not understand the protocol of domination that Europeans use to this very day. We don't just read the people we like, we also study the people we hate, because if you don't master the mind that destroyed you, you will never be able to destroy it. Sun Tzu, the great African, Asian, military scientist said what? If you know your enemy, but don't know yourself, there's a 50% chance you may win, but also a 50% chance you may lose. If you know yourself and don't know your enemy, there's a 50% chance you will lose, but there's a 50% chance you will win. If you don't know yourself and don't know your enemy, defeat is guaranteed no matter how much you prepare. That's right. And he said if you know yourself and know your enemy, victory is imminent before you approach the battlefield. So in 2012, I want you to start opening books with names that you can't stand, because you got to master your enemy's mind. The European, through the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergs, the Brookings Institute. They have think tanks that sit around and do what? Study the best revolutionary minds in the black community. And then they copy your procedures to use them for the benefit of their own. If you don't believe it, Adolf Hitler, while he was in jail, studied Marcus Garvey. If you don't believe it, do your research. Mussolini of Italy studied Marcus Garvey. If you don't believe me, do your research. Ho Chi Minh, the liberator of Vietnam, brothers and sisters, wrote Marcus Garvey and requested permission to sit in the back of the UNIA meetings in New York, because he said, I think I can learn from you and help my people, and went back home and kicked America's ass in the Vietnam War. So we must study. In 1973, there was a special conference held by the American Psychiatric Association. I believe it was in California. The subject of the conference was the revisions to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, Volume 2. I'm going to pull mine out. This is volume 4. But in 1973, they were using volume 2. And in 1973, it was decided that a mental disorder called homosexuality, should be taken out of this book so it could be used as the next great weapon in the population control war. In April of 1974, a few months before I was born, when the DSM-2 6th edition was printed, this very book, homosexuality, was taken out of it. In 1974, the same year, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger put together the National Security Memorandum 2000, which dealt exclusively with what? Population control. He suggested what? That sex education be used in schools to help fight unwanted black birth. If you haven't read the text of NSSM 2000, I suggest you download it from the internet and read it in depth. One of the biggest problems that we have is we get our information from the news media. And because the news media is controlled by the corporations who are pushing these population control laws, they only give you tidbits of what they want you to swallow, but the meat and potatoes of what they're really after, you don't hear nothing nothing about it.